Alright, so what we're kind of doing here in the meantime as well is off to my side here I got my Surface Go and I have my main laptop with 1903 just recently coming out. We're getting those up to date. The Surface Go I actually just recently reset not that long ago and just haven't had time to really do a setup on it. So I went through the setup process and then we're upgrading it straight to 1903 and then I'll get to using it like normal. As for the laptop, I reset that before my trip to Portland and Seattle last year, a little less than a year ago now. It's kind of gone crazy after that, so it may need a reload, but because of all the stuff I'm doing with these PCs, I'm going to get it up to date as well. Easiest way to get 1903 right now, and the best way in my opinion, would be to download the ISO via Microsoft's media creation tool. And then you just extract the ISO and run setup from your desktop. Far better than doing it through Windows Update. You can also turn off updates during the install and run into less issues. So what we're kind of starting out with here is over on the left, oh, I have the wrong thing up here. Okay, so on the left here, we have the motherboard that is being used by the build I will be rebuilding tomorrow. It's a Z77. I think I've actually used this in a personal build before, back in the day, and a 3770K. I used a 3570 at the time, from what I recall. But this is what we're going to be getting drivers for first, which for many of you actually might be more applicable because not everybody has the newest builds. The other one that we'll be doing is one that I built for my grandparents, which actually is brand new. Ended up being a R5 1600 base system, so a B450 chipset. So that's going to be really straightforward, and that will also apply to a bunch of people since you either will have a new system and be building one because of Ryzen, either because of the good prices it has now or because Gen 3 will be coming out very shortly. There are little bugs all over all my stuff because I have the windows open since we're finally getting into springish summer right now. Alright. I do believe for this, I should have... Holy jeez. Hopefully we can move all that data quick enough. What that is it's lossless raw files for my 860 QVO video. It's 400 gigs worth. I was wondering why that drive was getting so full. I need to empty some other stuff off of it as well. For now, we'll just put it back on the hard drive. Using, if you guys are wondering, I use Cineform for lossless, since your GPU can help with it, and with 4K anything helps, except the files for that are massive. Alright, so for this old guy over here, I should actually have a system I built not that long ago using that same motherboard. Oh, I say not that long ago, it's maybe 3 years or something like that. I got a P8Z77V LK. This is just a V. So it's going to be slightly different, but I'm guessing it's going to be fairly similar. So we're going to kind of look at both of those. There we go. I find it odd. See, look, the new tab page on here still uses Bing, even though everything else has changed to Google in my Edge. And I'm using Edge just because it doesn't have anything personal in it and I reset it. It also doesn't have any issues with being captured, unlike Chrome and the new Firefox does. If you guys have any questions, what I'm doing, or need some help with your PC build, picking out parts, troubleshooting it, finding software for it, just hit me up. That's kind of why I do these streams. I have to do what I'm doing anyway. I'm just kind of here to help you guys as well. In this case, we're going to want to go to asus.com. Right now, if you can see up here, we're in the US one. We want to go down to here and change it to global. If it's going to let me do that, I would appreciate it. Yes. Alright, so normally you should just be able to click that and it should redirect you. I had to center click it. Then you usually go up to service and support. I'm going to duplicate this tab. And the reason I'm going to do that is we want one of these for the V. Oh, we don't need the ASUS part of that. So here's the V, and I previously had the LK. So we're kind of going to look at both of those to see how close my previous driver set was, to see if I can go off of that. And we do want two of these open. We're going to want one open on the specifications page for both of these to compare. And then we'll want the support page open as well. LK, I think, is a cheaper... Oh, jeez, that's not what I wanted to do. Alright. So... I wanted the LK on this side. There we go. Oh, V supports the Lucid Logics. That means that's completely kind of pointless. But what that did back in the day is you could use the built-in graphics along with your dedicated graphics card to like help it along. Unless you had a really, really poor dedicated card, it really didn't do much of anything. If not, it made it worse. Nowadays, you're better off running, like leaving the onboard graphics enabled though, even if you have a dedicated card, as things can use quick sync as well as other Intel decoders, encoders, and stuff like that. There's definitely use for that. Also, you can troubleshoot in case your desktop card goes out. So there are ways to utilize onboard even if you have a dedicated card. It's just not going to be for like getting more frame rate purposes. Well, I mean, I guess if you stream at the same time, that sort of thing. So stuff we're looking at here is that the LK has a Intel chipset, whereas the LK has a Realtek LAN, whereas the V has a Intel LAN. That's looking like the biggest difference here. So what we should be able to do then is I'm going to grab, you'll see it popping up. Oh, I forgot I'm editing off, I'm copying stuff to the same drive that I'm trying to use to make room on another drive /4. Take a little bit here. Normally this wouldn't take nearly as long, but like I said, the drive's pretty busy. Once I'm on my main desktop where I have like plenty of SSDs and arrays of storage and stuff like that, I shouldn't have to do this as much. And I should be able to edit directly off of my like kind of local large storage drive instead of having to use external SSDs and stuff like that. It's just because I'm on my ITX secondary build right now that just straight up doesn't have enough fast storage. I could do all SATA SSDs in like RAID 0 or something. I just don't feel like putting the money into a secondary system while I build my main one, even though it's going to be outdated. Alright. Yeah, sorry, not much to do while we're transferring here. Just realized I still haven't updated my username and photo. Alright, from when I was at the convention. So that 4670K is actually wrong. That's a 3670K. That's actually 3570K. Either way, this is gonna be... If you see me post about the Potato Mark II on Twitter, my Twitter is @TheProfosist. This is the system we're going to be getting drivers for. Yep, still Windows 10X 64-bit. We're at a P8Z77-V. No LK, so we'll delete that. And then we have an i7. Yes, the 4670K can't be in that motherboard. I just mistyped at some point. 3770K. We don't need a date right now because it's not done. Usually I only date them once that folder is considered complete. There it is. All right. So we gotta do some quick double check in here. So for the LAN, the other thing I found that is this folder structure is a bit older than what I tend to use now. All of this doesn't apply either, since that was specifically for that other build, so we can delete that out of there. Delete that out of there as well. Looks like a product key or something like that. I think I gave Adrian a G700 S, I believe. I had one left. Don't know if he's still using that or what's going on there. Usually additional devices are kind of like external stuff, like peripherals that I know are going to be on the system. You know, stuff just not integrated into the board. We are going to want the built-in audio. He has the ALC892. Thing with... Oh yeah, I got all these drivers for Kai's build as well that still hasn't been done. Getting Realtek audio drivers has gotten kind of interesting now, but you don't really have to because they're basically just included in Windows 10 now, from what I remember. So that's the correct thing. BIOS, we're gonna have some fun with. Let's grab the manual. That's always good to grab. Oh, also for some reason, if I recall correctly, Asus's website acts very weird when using Asus's support website. Sometimes it just won't look like these tabs just don't work. Just kind of grabbing all of the English user manuals here. One of the things I'm noticing, not that, this is what I want, BIOS renaming rule for BIOS flashback, because if you stop in tomorrow, we will be streaming the build and setup of this system, and I will be making a NVMe compatible BIOS for this and running an NVMe drive in his system. It'll only be a 128 600p, or might be a 240 gig 600p. Still a huge upgrade for a system that only has 2 SATA 6 ports. The rest of the ports are SATA 3 gigabit, not 6 gigabit. So that's gonna be a huge improvement on the everything, basically. Even though it's not amazing, it's like a a lower end for an NVMe drive. It's still going to be D. Usually German though, isn't it? Looks like English to me. But yeah, so what you have to do with that is you use BIOS flashback to you have to mod the BIOS, but upon modding the BIOS, you'll need to use BIOS flashback, to get it on the computer, because the computer will check for like if you've modified the BIOS and stuff like that, and normally that's a good thing. In this case, it's not, because we want to do something special, let's just say. Whew. I have no idea what BIOS he's on. I love how it's like improves compatibility with a GTX 680. This one seems important. The firmware, the MEI firmware update tool. Chuck that into BIOS here, and then what we're actually going to do is I'm going to grab all of these, because it's always good to have a number of different versions. I also don't know which version he's on. Sometimes it doesn't, so far skimming through the notes, it doesn't seem like it's a thing, but on a lot of the newer AMD boards, there have been changes that are so big that you have to go to certain ones first. I do know with the Z77 boards that after a certain BIOS update, or before a certain BIOS, they're not actually UEFI. I do know that my board could do UEFI, so I assume his can as well, since it's technically a step up from it. Even if I think it might be a It's basically the exact same board, just some slightly better parts, or mine had slightly worse parts. So we'll have to see which version he's on, and then I'll have to kind of like read through the notes here. See if I missed anything. This came out 12.9.5. So we're gonna do old. What I'm doing is I'm making a before and after folder. That way I know what's, depending on what version he's on. 12.9.5, so it'd be the MEI driver has to be installed. We might do that with this current system then, before we, I don't know. We shall see. I just want to make a note of that though. So 1606. Would be before. So and the newest one is this 2104, which does seem to be a proper update that's non-beta. This one we will have to do as well. And that's the one I'm going to modify. So we have to get up to this, updating the BIOS essentially. And then once it's on that and we know it's working, we will install the modded BIOS. And I don't know if I'll have time to mod that before I go, otherwise I can easily look it up and do it on my laptop. So the one thing that did change on this board for sure is the LAN chipset here. So that's going to be the Intel one now, not Realtek, so I just got to rename a couple folders here. Otherwise, I think we're pretty good. Audio. Alright, so Realtek's website is, you have to make sure you use www and it's .com.tw. It will come up in Taiwanese first. Make sure you change it to English. Now, they've definitely started uploading less and less drivers to their website, which is kind of annoying. And you want to go straight to downloads and just overview. Yeah, and they only have their LAN drivers now. From my understanding, the latest Realtek audio drivers are just built into Windows 10. So we'll make sure we get the even that's been up. I know that's out of date, but I usually like having the original version just in case. any download time you're seeing shouldn't be my connection currently. It's usually on ASUS's end. I do believe on one of these builds, so what I did on some other ones here is instead of latest from Realtek, I just have natively supported in Windows 10 in there. And then since I don't have to install anything technically, I just put a little, that's why I have dashes in front of stuff here. That just means you don't have to deal with it. You can just delete that folder. Only there in case you really need it or something, you know, like something's not working right. All right, so let's go down these things here. So the only graphics driver that they have available is right here, and that's not going to be the correct one. So for CPUs, what we want is we're going to type in Intel ARC, ARK, and then we want what CPU it is. So it's an i7. 37. I'm wrong. Number row is not my jam, guys. That will get you Intel Arc, and then your model number. That will get you this. And what we want on here is it'll tell us what graphics we have. So we have HD Graphics 4000. So then make another tab, download center.intel.com. And what we're gonna do is you probably just search 4000 because it'll auto-populate now. Oops. 4000. And we want Intel HD Graphics 4000. Click on that. It's gonna do the auto search of what you need. Then we want 1064-bit. This is the latest driver it says is compatible with HD Graphics 4000. 33.48. Installs graphics driver for Bay Trail and 3rd generation. I believe I have a Bay Trail netbook. Oh, what I would call a netbook, even though I killed that term off. And 3rd generation would be Ivy Bridge. So, and you always want to make sure, since we have 64-bit, we want 64-bit, and you always want the zip. Because it's technically not the one from the manufacturer, it will complain. You can, however, because you have the zip file, force it via Device Manager, which I highly recommend so that you get your full, like all the features that are available. Because as an example, this driver was updated 5/15/2019. The last one from the manufacturer was updated 2015-9. So September 2015 versus May of 2019. Now, it's not a huge major version, you can see. If we go back here, and we select our OS. Now, the last one was like September, and it's still 15.33, so you're not going to get like huge changes or anything, like because you're not on like the really new versions. I think only Skylake and newer support, but it's at least more compatible, which is the big thing. Now, what you kind of saw over here is I always keep the original. Technically, if you know for sure that this driver is going to work, you don't have to. And then I also keep the latest one from whatever the direct manufacturer. In this case, it would be Intel. So now that we did that, we're going to go... I need to make a copy of this. The other thing I do a lot of times is I will make a second copy of the folder I'm working on and slowly delete things out of it. We finally hit spring yesterday, and now it's basically summer weather, so if you hear a little bit of buzz, I mean, my mic should be pretty well set up, so you shouldn't be able to hear background, like music coming out of my speakers or anything like that. But I do have a fan running and the window open, because it went from spring to summer one day, and then tomorrow we're back down to maybe spring. Sounds like thunderstorms the rest of the week and 50s. So, not amazing. Oh, if you're wondering why I'm looking around, for those of you who haven't watched me before, got 2 vertical monitors on the side and then another monitor up top. I may be switching this around at some point, but this is working out really well, and the only reason I kind of would switch it around once my new main desktop is put together would be to get a better gaming monitor in the middle. I love my 4K Asus. Wendo also reviewed it, and but it not great for gaming. It does have a bit of I don't know where the cursor trails around. I forget what that's called off the top of my head right this second. But what we're gonna do is, since I have a new folder, you can see it there, copy. I am going to just delete things out as I did them already. So far we've done audio, BIOS, and then we just did integrated graphics. It looks like that has a dash next to it. We actually need to undash that. I'm thinking this was back from when there was not really a benefit to enabling that integrated graphics. Oh, one thing that should be relabeled is this here, because he has a 1060 FTW 2ICX, basically the highest. He's buying my old 1060 off me, which is basically the highest end available 1060. Really nice card. However, it's just a 1060, so wanted to go to a nice home since, yeah, I mean, you can buy a 580 now for $200 or less, new. So that really kills what a 1060 is worth. And I went through the trouble with the ICX with thermal pads. This was one of the ones that had to be sent in, and etc. So, well, back to here. We did graphics, we did BIOS, we did audio. Now we're down to LAN. Let's hit save. So if you go back to here, remember we have our LAN right there. This is also Intel. Intel does make all their LAN drivers available. So you just go product name, yada yada, and it'll populate. You click on it. Go to 1064-bit. Download the latest version. Here once again, 11.9 of 2018 would be the latest driver for that, versus 2016 to 17. Now you're kind of starting to see why I go with manually getting them from the manufacturers when available versus, say, Asus. And I try to do all of the driver installs, if possible, before I actually even connect the computer to the internet. And the reason why that would be is otherwise Windows, which will be good for the audio portion of it, since that's the newest one, but it'll go and grab what it thinks the newest driver is. And however, that's probably just the newest one provided to Microsoft, not necessarily the newest. Or it's like the newest WHQL certified one, which, if you know anything about graphics drivers, that is pretty huge. And the reason why that's huge is because most of the game-ready ones are not WHKill certified. I actually don't know if NVIDIA's Creators driver is as well, which fixes a bunch of issues. And this did not have a version, which would be why I am typing in the version of the driver. Because otherwise, if I ever need to go back and stuff like that, it's good to know what's what, if that makes sense. So now I'm gonna, since I have this duplicate folder on the bottom here that you guys can't see, you know what, I'll add it for you. So it's right here. You can kind of see I'm slowly deleting stuff out as we get it done. Back to here, we did LAN. Utilities we can deal with later. USB 3. Now, I normally get the USB 3 drivers for ASMedia, High Point Tech. However, if I recall, even they do not update it. I have the latest ones saved on my computer here, so I will add those. But those are actually updated. The newest drivers you will get via oh, I put this in the wrong folder. I'm dumb, guys. Did I do the Intel one right? Jeez. Yeah. All right. So, the latest one from High Point Tech I have in this folder, it seems to be the same one. But what has actually happened over time is that with these, at least for the ASMedia USB 3, it's now natively, the latest drivers are actually built right into the OS for it. And they actually have better support than... It always used to be if I didn't go with the High Point drivers, I would have issues with USB 3. I would have issues in my brain's farting here. Like with big transfers and stuff like that. Also, I don't know if all of the manufacturer drivers or the Windows one would properly support UASP, which is Universal Attached SCSI Protocol, which is what turns USB into an actual storage protocol. A lot of people don't know that USB was not actually designed with storage in mind. And same thing kind of with the Intel USB 3.0. Search for it here. The Windows 10, and it's not even available. So, as far as I'm aware, for a long time, if we go up here, that's why I have my note. This is all the way back to 2015. The Intel USB 3 driver became part of the chipset, and then now I believe it just uses the built-in Windows 10 driver. So, not a huge thing. Just one less thing you need to install, basically. You can delete this then. Blah, 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 blah. Chipset. chipset's gonna be real fun. Okay. So we'll do see, and this one says it's have not been tested by Windows Hardware Quality Labs, WHSkill. So this is not WHSkill certified. And that's probably because it's a 3rd gen on Windows 10. Just like the graphics driver, not supported. You can see I've downloaded that one a couple times, I guess. 16351. Technically, the high point one I think is older. It's 16261. But like I said, I've always had good luck with the High Point drivers. If you are having issues, poke around High Point Tech's website. You can look at some of their older USB 3.0 and 3.1. I think the Type C don't have the download anymore, but otherwise, let me know and I'll send this to you. Usually, since this is a direct driver from ASMedia, as far as I can tell, it'll resolve any issues you're having. Even works on the older NEC. Like I have NEC chip in my Sabertooth X58 and a really old EVGA add-in board. That really gets those working properly. So we have Management Engine 11 here, original from Asus. Now, see, this is where we're gonna get a little bit interesting. Because if we do, let's see, 3770. Okay, up here, right? If we go to Windows 10, it's only going to give us graphics. And we need Management Engine. Now, the thing is with the Management Engine, previously it's looking like, and I'm going to keep this, I'll put a note on it. From LK model. There are a bunch of different management engines. Like if I normally I just type in management. Hit search. Go to 1064-bit. Sometimes these will tell you what versions they're still good for, and a lot of times they won't. So, and sometimes Windows 10 will actually, because Microsoft will, or Intel and Microsoft will work together and maybe make like a single legacy driver available for some of these older systems. I'm trying to think if there's any other Z77 yes. Okay, it's looking like 1194. $1194 is a common right here. That's like the oldest. And I will clean up my driver folder. Intel. Alright, so on another board, a computer that I've done actually more recently than the one that we're going off of, it's just an actual Intel motherboard. Looks like the 1194 was the newest I ended up with there. So that's why I made that note there. So we will download one of those. You always want the 1.5M That means consumer. If you get the 5M, that means corporate. Now your X58, X79, X99, etc. Those actually a lot of times still use the corporate drivers because they're based on server chipsets. It's been less and less so as times have gone on, but these X79 prior to the UEFI updates actually used Intel server RAID software as well. So that was like it was very servery. Sorry, I'm in a bit of thought here. Bleh. I need a drink. Just had somebody pop up in my Twitter feed because I was posting on something Barnacle said about 1903, except they killed off the tabbed file manager, which kind of sucks. It's because they killed Edge. Edge is technically still in 1903 as the new Edge for Chromium, or Edge with Chromium, whatever is in beta. But that means that Tab File Explorer was killed, since it used, maybe didn't use Edge, or maybe it used some source from Edge or something like that. But I never thought I'd want Edge to stick around until, well, that happened. So to me it looks like that's going to be the most likely one to still work. Then we have 909, 1236, 1236, 1236, 1236, 1236, 1236, 1236, and 1208. So we will grab 1208 here. These seem to be the newer type that almost for sure will not work. Because if you look, they're even named different now. But we will look for a consumer here. This is just the generic management engine driver for 8.1 and 10. And I'll kind of grab all of these, and you keep the one that works. This is also why I keep all of my driver folders. So based on the other one I had, more than likely 11.9.4 is going to be the most up-to-date one that will still work, since they really have not been updating the software side of things for anything older than Skylake for basically since Skylake came out. So, or if anything, they're going to be like security updates and stuff like that. But I will give the newer ones a try, of course, because why not? If they'll work, I'll use them. You know what? As crazy as this sounds, I'm gonna cancel that big transfer I was doing before. And I have an internal SSD that's kind of just plugged in via via eSATA right now. That, since I should really get this review done, that, there we go, much faster. It's on the same USB. Here, you'll be able to see this now. We're only getting about 180 megabytes a second, even though we're going from a external SSD to an external SSD. Now, if you take a look at that, that's almost exactly half of USB 3.0 speeds, and that would be because I do believe they're plugged into the same controller chip. And because each controller chip does 2 USB ports, if they're plugged in the same one, they're having throughput, because you're not going to a separate, technically you're going to a separate device, but the actual chip that's negotiating the connection is not. So that's why I got about a half speed, because we're not going from one USB 3.0 controller to a different USB 3.0 controller. We're going inside the same controller. So it's having to go on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. Or like send, receive, send, receive, send, receive, instead of just sending and receiving. UASP should help with that significantly. And if I had it on separate USB controllers, which I don't do this sort of transfer, and I'm not too picky since I only have like 4. I just deal with it. But it's still way quicker than what we were doing before. And I have space on there, and that video needs to get edited. So it's looking like everything is downloaded. What I will do once I figure out what version... Oop, it's not all downloaded. Never mind. Some of these get pretty big, if you guys are wondering. Yeah, we still have 91% left. Or not 91% left. We were still at 91%. Ugh. Can't speak. Whatever. We'll just overwrite all of those. And I will delete whichever one. Say if this 1236, which is that's the most generic one, that's why it's also the biggest. If that one works, yippee-ki-yay, we keep that one. And we'll go through all of these. And if none of those work, we'll go to this one. And if that one doesn't work, we'll go to that one. Now these two should for sure work because they've been on other systems with the same chipset. But MEI is related to the UEFI. So maybe that one didn't get updated as much, like on ASUS's end. Then it can't use as new of a version. Now 11.9.4 is the oldest one currently supported. And I think if that one doesn't support, we'll probably just be sitting with the one from Microsoft, but I doubt we'll get that far. I mean, like where it won't be compatible. I have a feeling I'm going to end up with 11.9.4 as the newest version it can do, since it is on Management Engine 11, not 12, and 11 is as new as it'll go, and this is listed as 11.06 or 11.04, etc., not 12. Whatever, and it doesn't have these bigger numbers in front. So, alright, so now that that's done, let's go into the chipset here. We will download the newest chipset driver from ASUS, also not G.Skill certified because it hasn't been updated since 2015 was basically the launch of Windows 10. They're like, why bother, essentially? I mean, I can't really blame them too much, but there are newer chipset drivers available. Kind of gonna do the same thing here. And we're gonna go back over to this other one as well. To be truthful, if I recall, the newest chipset driver should just work. Just search chipset. they maintain this stuff pretty far back. So select our Windows 10 64-bit. There I have update utility. I have the old LK is on 1.1.18 and the 10.1.18. This one's on 10.1.38. So I'm pretty sure that what's this public MUP thing? I'll grab both of those, I guess. Usually when you download the zip file, you have to accept something, whereas when you download these EXEs, you might not have to. I tend to want to use the zip so I can try and force it if for some reason it doesn't want to install on its own. Yeah, and see we're still going at, instead of 70 megabytes a second, 170. And then what I'll just do is, since that 400 gigs is going to be on that other external SSD, I will actually just force myself to edit that video. So expect a video on the new Samsung SSD. Copy. Oh, and this chipset is not named, and I hate when they do that. Because usually Intel names their files. But that's another thing, like I throw all these on a USB so I don't have to connect to the internet. Make sure you throw like 7-zip or something on there to do all the extraction and manipulation of zip files. I mean, you can kind of get away with as long as they're just zips. That's built into Windows, but it doesn't work as cleanly, usually. Alright, so now that the chipset is done, we can go back to our list here. We have SATA's next. Looks like it has a third-party SATA controller that I'll probably be disabling. Let's check our support thing here. Check this out. Asus even updated the old thing for a Z77 motherboard. Instead of to read USB 3.0, it reads 3.1 Gen 1. I find that hilarious. Because, like, they shouldn't. It should just be 3.0, 3.1, 3.2. I don't like this whole, like, oh, we have to have every version of USB have a moniker under the new version of USB. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm glad that they seem to be fixing that with USB 4. I'll just call it USB 4. And if you call it a USB 4 port, it has to support all the features of USB 4 from my understanding, instead of like now where you can have a Type-C port that does 2.0 even, and not even 3.0 or 3.1 or Thunderbolt or DisplayPort. You know, it can just be a USB 2.0 Type-C port. It doesn't tell me which controller. That's when we go and consult the manual. Oops. We'll check out this OS limitation PDF as well. Oh, they're basically saying USB 3.0 doesn't work with XP. A bunch of other features don't work with Windows XP. Yeah, this was back in time when people were still like, oh, I don't like Windows 7. Like, people like don't like 8 and 10. Well, people are like that about Windows 7 as well. And no, it didn't get much better than it was on launch. Like, Service Pack 1 happened, what, 2 years after launch? And then there's been major updates since then, but not a true Service Pack, which it really needs. But yeah, that's all that's saying. I thought it was something more 8 or 10 related, because I could see once, like, you wouldn't be able to install 7 if you flashed it to UEFI firmware version and then booted in full, like, not compatibility mode or whatever. So I could kind of see, like, that being a thing, but it's actually even older than that. So what I'm looking through now is they should in the manual tell us exactly what storage controller. No, it still just says ASMedia PCIe 6 gigabit. Well, that's what we'll go with then. I'm gonna call this. Is this a RAID driver or is this a? Oh, it's just SATA. I don't have anything newer for this. To be truthful, since we don't need it, I will probably be disabling it. But we want the drivers there just in case. ASMedia stuff used to be easier to get controller drivers for. But it looks like my webcam is wigging out. Interesting. Oh, it's kind of like significantly wigging out. Might be a frame FPS thing. Not really going to deal with it too much on this system, since very shortly here I won't be using this one. Sorry if that's rather annoying. I think it's frame rate related, where it's refreshing at slightly lower than the actual recording scene is. Yeah, we're at like 29, it's going 29 to 31, and we're capturing at 30, so I think it's got something to do with that. Alright, so let's go grab that ASMedia driver, here we go. Bam, that's about as good as that's gonna get. I got all these notes and stuff here, I don't really need these anymore. Smart Connect and Rapid Start have both been killed. Disable those in your UEFI if you're going with Windows 10. So we're going to kill both of those. Smart Response. This is just a note because prior to Z77, which is what we're currently on, Smart Response, which is Intel's SSD caching that uses SATA, so you can cache a, well, it turns out you can cache a single drive or a single array of drives with a single SATA SSD up to 64 gigabytes. Now it's just built into RST instead of having a separate technology for it as of Z77 and its UEFI update. So that is really what that note is telling me. I don't put it in newer boards. I will put it in this board though. And because we will be running in RAID mode, I will be using Smart Response because we're going to have an NVMe boot drive. Then we're going to throw the SATA into RAID, and we will use his old SSD as a games drive. And then I have a 60 gigabyte Intel 330 that we're going to be using to cache his RAID 0 or RAID 1 of 8 terabyte hard drives. So that way they will be cached. I believe we're going to cache read only, just so that that drive is not known to be very resilient. And it's going to be a mass storage device mainly because his games are going to be on his old boot SSD. That's a SATA SSD. And then the 8 terabyte drives, because Z77 only has 2 SATA 6 gigabit ports. That's where the old boot SSD are going to be and the cache SSD. And then on 2 of the 4 SATA 3 gigabit ports will be the 2 hard drives. Running in RAID 1. I believe, at least on Intel RAID 1, that reads you'll get double speed, or like roughly double speed. Writes you'll have the speed of a single drive. And the reason why you can get reads at roughly double the speed, even without a cache, is because you're reading from 2 separate drives. Whereas then you also get redundancy, where if one of the drives fails, like I'm not saying you have a backup or whatever, but you know, saying one of the drives does fail, you'll still have access to all of your data, and you can just pop another one in there and rebuild it. I find that super important if you have data that you want to save, some sort of redundancy, and then we'll probably set them up with backup, like Backblaze or something like that, because I think he's cool with that. I just want to make sure people don't lose their stuff. Ever since I lost my stuff, it's bad. Okay. Alright, now we're going to download, oh, they don't even have anything for it. So we will go directly to Intel then, and usually the easiest way to get this is just RST, is what you type in. And you go to Windows 10 64-bit. We don't need Optane. Now here's another case of, we should be able to use the latest version. Keyword is should. That's a big keyword actually, is should. I don't know that for sure is an issue. Luckily though, because we're not using this as a boot drive, I do not have to install, I will grab them, but the RAID driver is not required on install. I, of course, am going to try the newest version first, but I do believe it cuts off at a certain point. Once again, we're just going to kind of start on the newest one and keep rolling it back till we find the newest one that is still supported, and then I will go in there and delete all the other ones, you know, so I know which version. And some of these systems like this one are getting old enough where like they're not going to get updates, you know. Now this is probably going to go another 2 years at most, and then get upgraded once Intel finally comes up with their 10 nanometer stuff. Ooh, excuse me. But how it worked out is a 3770K, and at the time when we planned this, he also has 32 gigs of RAM. This is before RAM prices started coming back down when we planned on doing this. So we were kind of avoiding replacing his memory was the big thing, because CPUs on the Ryzen side are pretty cheap. Always take the zip if you can, like I was saying before. But RAM was just ungodly expensive when this was planned. They were kind of talking about this already a year ago, and then when he came back, so I would say like 6 months to a year ago is when a lot of this was planned. And I got a lot of the parts are either mine or secondhand. You know, I kind of just found stuff, because on an older system like this, you don't necessarily need brand new parts, and you don't need brand new parts and, you know, like the latest hardware to make it feel new. That's why we're going with like a first gen NVMe drive. It'll have some of my old NFF 12s. 1060 is still relatively new, but I mean, it's not like a 2080 or something. Not that it needs to be, but you know, and all the stuff going in there for the most part are going to be used. Stuff from my old builds, stuff from friends' old builds, so we can get a good deal on it. There are a lot of these to download. I have a feeling we're going to be stuck with 15 or 14. But, we'll find that out when it happens, you know? And all of these are not named, because why would they be? See, and here's a newer 14.8. So this is why, like they have a 14.8.16, right? With security vulnerability fix. So you may end up needing the 14 driver, but here's a newer one released this year versus however long ago. So finding some of these drivers directly from the manufacturer can get a bit tricky, I guess. Especially when it comes to Intel's RST, and you're going back, like, remember, we're on 9th gen right now. Technically, it's not 9th, it's the same as 7th gen. Maybe even 6th gen. But I'm all the way back on 3rd gen, so even if we're talking 6th to 3rd gen, that's 3 full generations of products of differences. Or, you know, well, there would have been Z77, then there was Z87. Z87 and Z97 were the same. Then there's Z170. Then there's Z270, 370, and 390. All those are pretty much the same. So that's, you know, 3-4 generations. And that can indeed cause, you know, significant issues. When it comes to drivers. So you have to, you know, you gotta dig through, and that's, once again, like I said, I keep all of my old driver folders. That way the next time I go through this for a certain person's build, especially if it's an older one, I don't have to redo all of this. Or if I do have to redo it, I have all the models written down, and I at least know what I used last time. So if for some reason something newer doesn't work, you can always roll it back to an older one that you know works. This is part of the reason why I also maintain all of my driver folders. Hey, look, this one's named. They can name things, guys. Look at that. Oh, they forgot how to name things again. That's Optane. You don't need Optane. If the newest one works, I'll be, you know, that'd be amazing. But I'm thinking we're gonna be on 14 or maybe 15. Just because this says 7th gen or later on here. And if we go back to like if we go on 14, it doesn't actually, does it say? Intel 100 or C230. So this might be like Z17. That seems too new. What does 15 say? See, like some of the stuff's sold, they don't even mention what it is for. Also, since they don't make motherboards anymore, it's become a little bit harder to find actual 6th gen, 7th gen. Pretty sure for Intel platforms not supported above 14.8. I'm pretty sure we're going to be stuck on that newer 14.8 driver that has the security fixes in it. But we shall see. I think most of the 3rd gen has gone legacy. For gaming though, it's kind of about as old as you can go if you want to use Windows 10, due to the fact that it is full UEFI. So you can get a proper install Windows 10 going on there. And say if you have a, you know, an i7 with hyperthreading or a Xeon with even more cores, it can still be a decent experience, for sure. Some second gens can be upgraded as well. Like, it's kind of messy. I would say realistically, don't go older than 4th gen. Because it gets older than 4th gen for sure has drivers, for, like proper drivers for everything for Windows 10. Anything older than that, not so much. I mean, and now with the price of Ryzen, like I said, I bought a 6-core, 12-thread CPU for $80, and then a motherboard for it after a combo deal for $40, and RAM was $67 for 16 gigs. Unless you're getting this old stuff free or dirt cheap, or it's your old build or something, you're better off buying new with Ryzen. Like, it has wrecked the used market, which is good and bad, I guess. You know. All right, so now that we've finally finished, in quotes, technically this folder won't be finished until I actually, work on the system. Just to get it out of the way, we're going to go to NVIDIA. I'm going to grab 2 different drivers. I'm glad they got rid of GeForce.com, if I recall. I think it's just part of here now. If we go drivers, GeForce drivers. Oh, it does redirect you still. We want a 10 series 1060. Windows 10 64-bit, start search. If you see standard and DCH might be required if you have a newer, like we're talking 7th gen or newer system with an even newer UEFI. In the case of this system, it won't even be able to use DCH drivers. You also need, it's for sure 1803. I believe you might need Windows 10 1809 or newer in order to use them properly. I think it's 1803 though, but a lot of stuff changed in 1809, and 1903 is kind of like a new start for a lot of things. However, with the older hardware that we have, we don't have to worry about that. You might, especially if you have like your laptop, a gaming laptop, or like say you have an OEM like Lenovo, Dell, HP desktop. There's a good chance that they may require you to use the DCH drivers. Now, we're gonna grab 2 different ones. Where the hell is the creator driver? Alright. Well, we will download this. Save. We want NVIDIA Creator driver. Maybe it's not available for 1060? Oh, no, 10 series is supported by the creator driver. Where do I find that, though? Because before, I swear it just popped up under here. Oh, here. You gotta go to creator editor driver. Hit search. There you go. It's only got 1 right now. Creator stuff, you might not be able to most compatible with more games, but it is way the hell more stable. Also, he uses this a lot for work. It's definitely more powerful than his laptop. He has a nice new laptop. If you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen it. It's a newer ThinkPad, but no dedicated graphics or stuff like that because he has his desktop. So in this case, there's a decent chance we're going with the creator ready driver because in products like this, like your Blender, your Photoshop, a lot of stuff's been fixed in it. However, it's not going to be optimized for the latest games. So it's kind of a trade-off there. I will probably end up running creator drivers, especially since I have a 20 series, which it's highly optimized for. I'll run them on Actually, I might not be able to, because I have a 750 Ti in there. I'll probably end up swapping that 750 Ti out once I put a new motherboard and CPU in. But that'll be once Intel has 10 nanometer and X499 or whatever it is. So it'll be a while. Let's see, not needed. Yeah, we can fuck. GeForce experience can go F off, basically. In the case of this, well, like I said, we'll probably be going with Creator Driver. I just want them both there just so we can save time downloading them though. Usually I would definitely take the benefits of the more stable and better performance in professional applications driver than dealing with, oh, compatible with the latest games, which, you know, different strokes for different folks. If you take a look at follow Epos Vox or Tech Wendell, Epos Vox, his channel is Epos Vox, and then Tech Wendell's from Level 1 Techs. They've done a lot of stuff with Creator Driver, and it basically fixed Epos Vox's workflow, so he didn't have to switch to an AMD card. Because there are apparently just huge issues with it with Adobe software. I mean, not that there aren't just huge issues with Adobe software in general, but you know what I mean. One thing you're not going to be able to see, because I have to be logged in order to do it, and I don't have my login over in Edge over here, is I need Precision X. It's under downloads. Service. EVGA software. Excuse me. Okay, so in this case, once again, we're still in up and up, because Precision X1, which is the newer one that was, it's still in beta, which is, it's kind of not great. I really wish they would stop redeveloping their entire software stack, which is what it seems like they do, or at least their UI for it, every dang time a new graphics card comes out. But Precision X1 that came out for RTX cards, and then later 16 series cards, is compatible with 10 series cards now. It seems like because 16 is so close to 10 and doesn't have RTX, a lot of, if it's on a 16 series card, it'll get pushed back to a 10 series card, from my experience. Not everything from a 20 series card goes on a 10 or a 16 series card though, even though the 16s are brand new. So we can delete this folder now. So I really have gotten away from boot setting, is super nice. I will actually grab the newest one from my personal build. Make sure we got 1022. Yeah, 1022. 43. Okay, that's the latest one there. I really don't use AI Suite anymore. It just breaks things. That's why I've really been for high-end builds. I still like using ASUS boards. However, RMAing with ASUS has been a pain in the ass. RMAing with ASRock, amazing. RMAing with Gigabyte took me 3 months to get it. At least with ASUS, though, it still took a month because they sent me bad stuff multiple times. They were quicker about it, whereas it literally took multiple months for Gigabyte to get back to me about stuff, about graphics cards and stuff like that. I do quite a few RMAs, and that's why I do put like support pretty high up there. That's why I'm willing to pay that little bit extra for EVGA. Also, I know their cards are built physically well, or when stuff like the thermal pads happen, they take care of it. And I will pay a little bit extra for that. That's just what I've experienced in my time as a PC builder. Just because I think it's because I build and deal with more systems than the average person. when you only have to deal with one graphics card every 3 years, you might get a bad taste in your mouth if you have to RMA it, and then you probably just won't use them again. But there's a bunch of different brands. However, based on my sort of stuff, since I've used all the brands, at least in North America, I tend to go with one that I've had the best experience with, rather than a bad experience here and there. And EVGA, always on top of it. Great support. They just kind of always take care of you. You know what I mean? And that's worth $20 more for me. I tend to not do super duper budget builds either, though. If I was going to do that, I wouldn't buy new, buy used. And then they still will take care of you. Gets a little iffy though due to mining. They had to retract some of their resold card warranties due to the mining stuff. So I'm kind of going through here because there weren't any utilities for this motherboard for Windows 10. Looking back, it was USB 3 boost, AI Suite 3, Wi-Fi Go. Really don't want any of those. Let's take a look at 8. We can delete this copy folder as well. Where are you? Remove. Because that folder is basically empty now. We're just looking through to see if there's any 3.0 boost, Lucid Virtue, that's hot garbage now, USB 3 boost, easy update, AI charger, Wi-Fi Go. Stuff we're looking for right now is going to be stuff like ACPI driver, ATK driver, stuff like that. And I'm not seeing that, so we'll check Windows 7 because that's going to be as old as we get here. Alright, it's not looking like that exists. So the other things that we need to get, that's L. We're going pretty far. L. Alright. Since he's got his G700, basically what we're going to do is we're going to get him Logitech G Hub, which I hate. New software is crap. And then we're also going to go check out Logitech's website. Logitech Gaming software. Right here, we're going to download that as well. Because the G700, if I recall, it may not even have G Hub support, which wouldn't be a bad thing, truthfully. Clearing up some stuff at the bottom of the thing here. Alright. You know what, and since we're on Logitech's website, we'll just look G700 up. They should just have a search right away. G700. S. we go. Downloads. Yeah, so it doesn't even, not even compatible. It probably will work with G-Hub, but we will go with Gaming Soft since it's better. Okay, our lossless video finally copied over. There we go. Bada bang, deleted. And we're now way emptier, but there's only 60 gigs left on that temporary editing SSD, which is fine. And our size of our file is 35 gigs, so not filling up as big or as quickly as I thought, but it's still, would have probably been over. And here's the Logitech gaming software. It's basically 1 o'clock. There's that. And for a split second there, you can see my new background. I don't remember what SSD he had. Oh, we're gonna have the Intel 600p. And I think that might need a... That probably needs a firmware update. So make sure you're searching not in the website search, but the actual download page search. It only lists the 512 or the terabyte for the 600p. Doesn't really matter, but SSD toolbox and firmware update tool. Oops, and I just delete them. Apparently. Close all this crap now. Oh yeah, so I guess it's good to know that the creator driver, they do seem to be making more than one now and plan to update it, because it does have its own drop down. A lot of the Quadros have multiple drop downs for different types of, like you can get a like 3D CAD optimized driver and stuff like that, where it was like even software specific or software type specific. So I'm glad that desktop graphics cards are getting that now, and it does show that they're likely to support it, like make more of them. Now I should be able to, I don't know if I'll need the software update thingamajig here. But, because I believe it can be done through the Intel SSD toolbox. But just in case, or in case it hasn't been done yet. this? Somebody went dash happy on the Intel SSD toolbox. Whatever, man, though. At least you named it with a version type, unlike a lot of your brethren. That's all I really have for drivers for this. We have the 3770K, 32 gigs of RAM. You know, get everything hopping there. I think it might have a Wi-Fi module. I didn't see... Oh, we're getting some... Sorry about this. It looks like this got pushed off now. I guess I got all the drivers and software. Alright, well, then I'm not pressed as much to get this done super quick, but it is done. We have all of the drivers for this, which is good. Thumbs up. Next up, we have, not in this, my other notebook. I like these, by the way. Rhodia dot pads. I like Rhodia's paper, nice and thick, good for many different types of pens. And I really like the dot paper for stuff like this. Technical, more technical things like that for like my desk designs and stuff like that. Super nice to have a grid, but it's not like grid paper because it's dots. So you have the dots to connect, like draw between to get rough estimates of things, but you don't actually have all the grid lines there. So dot paper, in my opinion, much better than grid paper. Also, it lets you just completely ignore it if you want to write all over the place, like kind of how this was when this is the plannings for my grandparents' build. So lets you write all over the place. Or if you want lines, essentially, I mean, they're already there because it's the dots make a grid, essentially. So what we're going to be doing here then, what did I name this thing? Right, so there's nothing there. I'm just trying to see what I might have named this build. I don't think I have an older driver folder for it because it's rather old. Oh, the one thing that is exactly the same though is not new dry bones. Dry bones folders. Date modified. Looks like I never made proper drivers for Cobble 2 either. But that's what would have been the exact same driver-wise. Because I think it even used the same motherboard as Cobble 2. Let's take a look at the server here real quick. Got itchy nose hairs, guys. I just remembered something. I need to go pull something out of the dryer. Sorry about the delay there. Had to go get something out of the dryer, like I said. You can see my mouse collection and a new monitor sitting out there. Really should review that monitor once I get it all set up. Squeer's actually already bought one and has had it for a while, so excuse me. Let's see if we can update this. Whatever. So, looking at... I don't think I did drivers for any of their previous computers either. Corrupt, maybe. I kept a bunch of old corrupt folders of my drivers as well, because they at least will give me names of motherboards and hardware and maybe driver versions, but the actual files themselves were not maintained because, you know, corrupt. It's in the name. So we will make a new folder. GNP desktop version 2.0. And it's gonna have Windows 10, which is already on there. You might have actually seen my previous large stream, I believe, which is expiring on here. Also available over on YouTube. It was Squeers and I building that before we went to Anime Central that weekend. So 64, Elliot. Then for motherboard we have a ASRock B450M Pro 4 Plus. Like I said, it was a AMD R5/1600. So we're going to start this whole process over again with those bits. Now, it turns out for AMD it's a hell of a lot easier. We're going to make a copy of Kai's desktop, which I'll redo for him. And that's going to be the one we're going to copy bits from, naming of things and deleting out of and stuff like that. Well, just replying to some messages about tomorrow, since it kind of got canceled, but I want to get everything ready. That'll actually give me time to get stuff for streaming ready. I got a bunch of new hardware. Let me go big screen here. So some new products we have are, we got ourselves this Thermaltake PCI Express extender. This is for testing on my server, so I can hook up the graphics card because the current case does not have room to fit the graphics card in the 4X slot on the bottom. It'll kind of just dangle out with this just to make sure it works until I modify the case it will be going into correctly. specifically for streaming, so I don't have to worry about batteries, a USB power adapter for my Panasonic G7. I would have bought the official AC adapter for it, but it is no longer sold. So this is actually more versatile for me. I'll just take this, and I have my Razer battery bank that's 20,000 milliamp hour, I believe, with two Type A ports. One does, I think, up to 2.4 amp, and the other one does quick charge 3.0. And it does have a Type C port as well that could power like the GoPro. So I could use this to power both my Panasonic G7 and the GoPro powered while streaming off of that. Or I could use, I have a AC adapter that's kind of like right about there, and that is dual 2.4 amp that you just plug in the wall. That'll work with this as well. Might have to put a USB extension on it if I do that though. By doing that, I only really have to worry about recording time. I don't think the sensor on the G7 overheats. That's mostly just recording time. We got our Stream Deck Mini. I've had this, if you follow on Twitter, for quite some time. Really haven't set it up yet. Need to get around to doing that. I've wanted these for quite some time. Want to set up macros and stuff as well. I do have my Orb Weaver, but its software for macros is kind of iffy. Macros that once worked don't anymore, even though they haven't changed at all, and the software hasn't changed. Then we have a Camlink 4K. This is what I will be recording the Panasonic G7, is replacing my Razer Ripsaw with, which just ended up kicking the bucket. Went with this because it's 4K 30, which is all the Panasonic G7 does, and it'll also do 1080p 60, which is what most PCs will be. Now you're like, well, if you're putting a PC on there, how are you going to see it? I do have a 1080p HDMI splitter from View HD. This also does strip HDCP signals, so for your consoles that still have that, it'll strip it out. And this is like 20 bucks, maybe. If you want the 4K version of this, it's near 100 if I recall. But realistically, this is really all I need. And it is only HDMI 1.3B, I think. But that will do 1080p 60. You need 1.4A to do 4K 30. However, I believe that's much harder to crack on the HDCP side of things, which is why this is so cheap. And people used to buy these all the time just to, be able to record HDMI. In this case, I don't necessarily need it for that. I can use it for that when needed, but it'll actually be for splitting, taking in a signal and then sending it out to two devices. One of which being the Camlink 4K, which is actually really, really good from what I've seen from Epos Fox, because it shows as a webcam instead of like some fancy device, which is rather nice, simple, straightforward. I believe it might even be plug and play. So these two things we'll definitely have figured out for when we do that PC rebuild stream, along with that power adapter, because though I could use batteries, I don't know if I could recharge them quick enough for them to be drained, even though I have 3. Woo! Back to the live dashboard here. Let's see what we're up to. Okay, so we have a copy of Kai's desktop here. We're gonna open that in a new window. He has still not built that. Lots of stuff at work has happened apparently. Drinking some in here. We have some Pocari Sweat. Love the stuff. If you're a fan of Gatorade style drinks, but think they can be a little heavy, try some Pocari Sweat. It's very clean taste because it's grapefruit, if I recall. But a lot of the B350. That's my board. So, I believe we use this same board. I don't remember if it's big or a little less. I think it's big S. I believe the same board was used in Cobble, but I never got around to actually doing the drivers for it because Frozen Slate took it so quickly. Like, we built it and he took it the next day. I believe he took care of the basic AMD drivers because most of the stuff now with AMD Ryzen just need chipset and graphics. Oh, it's capital R2. I'm out of it today. So once again, we're pretty much going to close all these up. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing because I'm on the wrong thing. Ha! Hopefully you guys enjoyed the little aside there of showing what came in. Over here, though, we have our ASRock support page. If you're wondering why I got this one, let me see if I can... There we go. We got a bigger board here. So, big reason why I got this board. We were looking for a micro ATX board because I originally wanted to go ITX and APU. However, it was cheaper with that R5 1600 to go with a full-blown desktop CPU. Like, I think it would have came out the same using a RX 570 and that compared to using a 2400G. Like, that's nuts. But that's pricing. Because ITX, and that's using ITX compared and MATX. Yeah, ITX APU system versus an MATX full desktop. Now, what was better than this about Gigabyte boards can be pretty good. I'm not a fan of their RMAs. Like I said, I dislike MSI completely as a brand, and usually they do some weird shit. Their UEFI is awful. Not gonna buy their stuff. So it's ASRock or Asus for the most part. Asus's lower end boards are known to be super duper solid. However, ASRock seems to have better bang for the buck. In this case, I would put that in where we're at right now. Is the Asus board had no VRM heatsinks, like we're looking right here, right? Only had a 4-pin CPU power. Then the layout down here for the PCI Express was much, much worse. They had your first graphics card in the top slot, which that's kind of like standard, but that's actually worse because if you have a big tower cooler, which in this case we might have had I not gotten rid of it, I think I gave it away. You can interfere with a big tower cooler onto the back of the graphics card. Like, you can cause shorting issues like that. So having it one slot down is good. If you notice, also this slot perfectly aligns with your RAM. So like if you're a little bit off or your RAM's a little tall or something, it's really hard to get at this here. Imagine that clips right there. So, because that I mean, it looks like it wouldn't work, but if you draw the line across, it'll just fit. Or say you have a backplate on your card and it didn't account for backplate, it might not fit. That's why it's better to have it on the second slot here. The other nice thing about that is instead of this 1X slot being under the graphics card right here and not being able to be used, it is above it. It can now be used. The next thing would be this M.2, which is on a lot of boards and on that Asus board, put under the graphics card here. It is above it. That means you're not getting the heat dump off of the fans from the graphics card onto the M.2. Now, I still used a M.2 heatsink because we're using a Samsung 970 EVO Plus, and Samsung drives, especially because they're higher performance, are known for at least the controller to overheat a bit more. Actually, you know what I can do, because we have our tools out somewhere here. Monitoring. I can actually show you, even with the little bit we're doing right now, that this system has an Intel 600p in it, a 512 gigabyte version. And I don't know if you hear that beep, 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 beep. That means there's a problem with your drive. So, if we go to screen capture, and I have no idea where it went. Okay, it's right below us. So if we go to screen capture, put it on crystal disk info here, and make it nice and big for you. And we go to C drive. C drive. There you go. Technically speaking, my 600p is overheating. Now, that's because I have it in an ITX rig, and this is mounted on the back of the motherboard. This is also on a case that does not have a CPU cutout, which means I can't easily access it and change it out and add a heatsink or something like that. It gets even worse once you start hitting it with a benchmark. Let's do crystal disk mark as well. Let's do a short one, like 3 by 1 gigabyte on C drive. Sure. Now we should be able to see once this ramps up here. I don't know if the 1 gig runs are going to be enough, but this is idle, is at 52. Most of the stuff in that case is lower than that. Now we are obviously streaming. Can I do a refresh? How does one do it? There, we're up to 70C. See that? So this is a case where heatsink on the M.2 would probably help, because on the backside of the motherboard without a CPU cutout, for sure. But yeah, so it's not a thing that M.2s don't overheat. When you put them in the ideal situation with nice airflow going over them, they probably won't. When you have them like underneath a graphics card, getting heat dumped off by a graphics card, and you're putting load on the NVMe, probably gonna overheat. So 850 EVO. Jeez, this thing's barely been used. 1.3 terabytes. My C drive's got like 20 something terabytes written. The old drive from the cache drive had 100 something. I think the this one I can't even check because it's too old. I have replaced this. This is actually what I replaced with the QVO drive. So we go back here. We're down to 66C now that we're the reads have stopped. We're kind of going down. Let me see what happens once the writes go. I kind of do an active benchmarking. If you get what I mean. All right, let's refresh this. Now we're doing writes back up to 70C right away. So it is very unhappy about 70C as well. We can also check with, there's SSDZ as well. I don't know if it'll have active thermal testing. No, it doesn't check thermals actively. It just gives you information. It says 8 tera. This one can read the Crucial, it looks like. It's a Crucial refurbished 1 terabyte that I got for $180 like years and years ago. Like that was a smashing deal. Only until very recently have prices come below that. It says 8 terabytes have been written on that. I'd be not surprised on that because it's basically my games drive. So unless I reinstall a game or something. Oh, we're up to 72C on the C drive. And this is part of the reason why I think I get hangups when I do so like really hard, like say I import into what do we want to call it? Freaking see, it's weird that this SSDZ program can read the Crucial drive but can't read the Intel drive. Very odd. But yeah, like when I import from Lightroom, I get hangs and stuff like that, and I'm thinking it's due to this drive. Now, my new system will have the Optane 900p, so I don't see performance of my main drive being an issue at all. If I could, I would run an M.2 and that, because theoretically I could, because there's 8 lanes there, but when you use an M.2, it fully disables the 8x slot on the bottom instead of making it a 4x slot. It's a real issue with the Sabertooth X99. If we go back to oh, and here's the benchmark. Oh, I'll get you guys. Here's what the actual benchmark looked like. 1400 by 457. If it wasn't overheating, it'd be better. most of these stats are still better than what a SATA drive would be. In fact, I can actually run it on a SATA drive, which is... Which drive is that again? D? D, yeah. So we checked D. That's just sitting outside the case right now. If we go back here. Just sitting outside the case, 28 degrees, 29 degrees now that we've started doing a read test to it. $31 degrees. Like, it's gonna climb a little bit because there's not even airflow going over it. But you see how we started at much lower? We're at basically at ambient. Whereas because that SSD is on the back side of that motherboard, trapped in there essentially, it doesn't have airflow. Yeah, it could really use a heatsink and a CPU cutout and stuff like that. Why is our read speed so freaking slow? I'm gonna stop that, but yeah, I think my external SSD might be getting restricted by the controller I'm using, because I'm just using an eSATA, USB 3 to eSATA adapter. Seems that it's only SATA 2, not SATA 3. It's also not UASP, but still seems quick enough to edit 4K off of. So, as long as it works. We'll be going through these tools later because I need to update most of them. Alright, so now we go back to Edge here. So yeah, basically better layout. If you don't have a heatsink on your M.2, you can easily fit a full-length PCI Express 1X card in there. I don't necessarily think you'd need one. I do tend to recommend it. If you know for sure you're going to have to use that 1X slot, don't get a heatsink. Or get a drive you know that doesn't overheat. Some of the lower end drives. Like I know a 660p from Intel or a 760p, those don't overheat. Oh, and your 4X is at the bottom. So theoretically, if you get a board with 5 slots, or a case with 5 slots, you could hang a graphics card or a 2-slot card off the bottom. But this just seems to be the best. It still does have Realtek LAN, not Intel, like some of the higher end boards, but it has heat sinks on the VRM and an 8-pin power. A much better layout. Worst case, if you need to get the CMOS battery, like you got to take your graphics card out, but there should be a clear CMOS pin somewhere else that'll be a bit better. What annoyed me kind of, and what you guys might like, is there's 1, 2, 3 RGB headers. Fuck RGB, man. This is the most budget board they make, yet it has 3 RGB headers. Disgusting, if you ask me. Disgusting. Alright, so if we go to specs here, we're actually copying in the files from Kai's computer, since it's also a B450. And that'll at least give us a better starting point on the folder. Now with this one, here's where I was talking about where you need to incrementally update the BIOS. So this is basically saying, this one is saying here that you need updated graphics drivers, and you need to be on, for 2, you need to be on 1.6. Holy jeez, I gotta update their BIOS again already. A big update for AMD next-gen Ryzen platforms. Looks like it supports a driver update as well. Luckily, I haven't really done much on there besides install Windows. So, update to AGESA 0.72, update AMD Combo PI. But basically, any of these yellow ones require a previous version. So to be on this guy, it seems like you could go straight to 1.6 if you wanted. I think mine came with 1.5, so I had to go 1.6, 2, and then from 2 I went to 3.1. We will once again just grab all of these. And I'll keep the ones kind of that we need. You haven't really seen this in a while on AMD systems or Intel systems since UEFI has been introduced. UEFI was kind of like once UEFI started coming out, that was kind of the last group of BIOSes that or updates that need to be done in a certain order, because basically you couldn't do a UEFI, an update to the UEFI, if you did not yet have the UEFI installed. Now it sounds kind of straightforward, but it's not, because people didn't even know what UEFI was, and it would in many cases break people's booting for Windows 7. So you really only did it if you're going to UEFI compatible version of Windows, like Windows 8. Now 7, I have done a UEFI install of 7 once somehow. That was on my Sabertooth X79. I have not been able to get it to work since. Not that it needs to, because realistically Windows 7 is only like BIOS or UEFI compatible, but normally it will never do a GPT install that's UEFI formatted. I have gotten it to go once, but it seems to be a fluke more than anything else. I'm kind of leaving these here because they're required. Oh, will not be able to flash previous version of BIOS after upgrading this BIOS version. All right. So this is another one where you gotta have the previous one, and you can't go backwards once you get here. Which keep an eye on. If you say have a board that's not supposed to overclock, or a board that allows a CPU that's not supposed to overclock, you may not want to upgrade, because that might break that, and you wouldn't be able to go backwards again. Now they say you can't, but you still might be able to if you use like BIOS flashback or ASRock's equivalent of that, which I don't remember what it is offhand. So we got our BIOSes. I'm going to have to update the BIOS one more time because a brand new one just came out a couple days ago. A brand new chipset driver also did, as did graphics for that, and I'm guessing that new BIOS is what's going to make it compatible. So we just want our English user manual. For some reason, I haven't found a way to make Edge just download PDFs instead of freaking opening them. I find it super annoying. Just download it. I will open it in whatever my preferred reader is. I don't like opening up PDFs on the web, personally. And the really weird thing is, once you save it, instead of continuing being loaded from the web, it loads from your computer. It just... it's kind of weird. Alright. So we have our manuals. So make sure we're in the copy folder. Additional software, theoretically, I am giving them an old Logitech G Pro. So what we can do is, if we go back here, we go to Adrian's computer, and we get his G700S. pop that there. We can just rename that to G Pro. I don't believe the keyboard, which is a Cooler Master Mecha Mechanical keyboard, I don't believe that has any software. Realistically, do they need to control the G Pro either? Nope. Am I going to install software? Nope, because I already set it to be 800 DPI. It'll be fine for 1080p. Don't want to make it 1600 because too fast probably, even though that's what I use. I use that even at 4K. Because I have a big enough mouse pad. I may have to install it if I need to lower it to 400 DPI. But you can on that mouse just save it directly to the. It does have onboard memory, not for the LEDs though. I was really hoping to be able to turn off all the LEDs, but guess they get fancy gaming stuff that flashes LEDs all the time. Where's our audio here? Ugh. So the Kai does have a nice board. He has the Asus ROG Strix B450F. Yeah, so he actually has good onboard sound. I'll show you in a second here. The motherboard that we're using for my grandparents literally has the exact same sound card as the and I will switch app. Here, take a look at this. Here is the one we just did. Z77, ALC 892. We go back here, ALC 892, ALC 892. So that has the exact same, and you gotta watch out. That would be, I guess, one thing on a board this low end if you weren't planning on using an external audio device, or you just straight up didn't care about audio because you're using HDMI out to something. You might want to get a better board because that audio chipset, I think it's even older than Z77 to be truthful. Like I think my X58 might have it, but it's garbage. Hot garbage. And I know Kai got a really good deal on his motherboard. They were kind of building that as cheaply as we could as well. At the time at least, even though it's been kind of like pushed back. But that actually has a good sound card, even though he won't really be using it because he has a external USB sound card. It's just a little creative guy, but it's technically better. I was wondering actually what happened to that sound card. I was looking for it everywhere. It's a little USB dongle one. Turns out I had sent it to him with a pair of headphones that I had sent him. Whoa. Alright, let's get back over here to downloads. So, what we have... Let's grab this audio driver real quick. Even though, like I said, I do believe... newest driver for all this stuff... the Realtek audio is going to be just built right into Windows. We don't need the VGA driver because we don't have a chip with a brain farting here. We don't have a chip with a graphics card built in to the CPU at least. Looks like we still close. like I did still keep that for some reason, so we'll keep that trend. We're just not going to need it though because we don't have a CPU compatible, but I guess it's there if we need it. Would always rather have stuff there if we need it than not have it. So the next place we're going to want to go is AMD.com. And then what you're going to want is drivers and support. We're going to want graphics card is going to be processors with graphics. Ryzen processors, Ryzen desktop processors, 2400G. But no, we don't. No. Yeah, that's what we want. 952 just came out. It's a significant upgrade if I recall. Can't click the cookie thing. Chipset is what's more important here because we're actually going to need that. So you go chipsets, AM4 chipsets, B450 chipsets, hit submit. And then we're going to get, no thanks. So that's the graphics one. Graphics driver's getting huge now, like physically large. Keep having to rename stuff because the other B450 one is a ASRock board, not an ASUS board. If we go here though, we should be able to get our okay, I don't know. Their download is drunk because we don't actually have the chipset driver. So we're gonna go here though. We're gonna download that. Hit download on the chipset driver. Save. And they definitely don't have a. They have a EVGA. We'll modify this one. It's easier. For anyone who uses GPU D, GPU I, D is dedicated, I is integrated. We have a 960 4 gigabyte SSC. And wait, what? Oh. We'll have to look up the latest compatible one. I think we're going to need an older Precision as well. Because remember, Precision X1 only does 10 series cards. This is a 9 series card. I could have gone and bought a 570 for them. Because that would be anything, like a 1030 was even $100, but a 570 was $120. So the minimum card you would buy would be a 570. And a R5 1600 and a 570 would be a banger of a pretty good gaming computer for like $500 to maybe $600 for what we've paid for all this stuff. So it was pretty darn good. At least I think so. There we go. We got our chipset drivers. Delete that. We are finally on a newer version. We're on 19.18. It took a while to do that. We were on 18.10 for forever. Like literally, it felt like literally forever. Go to NVIDIA's website. And this is why I have, oh, I should capture this for you. Once again, this is why I have this little guy down here. And that's so that I can kind of keep tabs, especially if it's the same exact motherboard. Or as long as it's similar, I can kind of delete the folders from here, knowing that I've already gotten the drivers and updated the folders up here. Pretty, I guess, not straightforward, but it's what works for me. I'm gonna go with 960. A couple of flies around here because I have the window open, and then thing is a little 960. All. Yeah, because I don't think there's a creator-ready driver for 960. Yeah, because it's 10 series, you know, I remember. So we want recommended/certified. And it looks like the 430.64. That's why I might end up not running personally the creator drivers, because I have the 750 Ti in my build, and and anything older than a 10 series is not compatible with the creator driver. So I may end up having to look at my 2080 Ti in there. I have the once you exceed 3 monitors a graphics card, though, NVIDIA says you can do 4. I've always had issues doing more than 3, especially when said 3 or more of them are all different and they're not in surround. It gets messy. Weird tearing, yeah, it just does weird stuff. But if you go down to 3, it's fine. I've known this for a long time. This is why I used to run SLI with a 3rd graphics card. So all, like, my main monitor or monitors would be on the main card, and then all the auxiliary displays that weren't 10-bit or weren't important, I guess they're just doing text-based stuff, were all on the other card. So it was, I had dual 570 HDs that have display ports. So I had my 2 display ports out to my 2 10-bit panels that I had at the time. And then I had a 430 single slot, 430. Then later, once I went up to dual 670s, and then later dual 770s after I did an RMA, I had a 640 4 gig single slot cooler that had 2 DVIs and a micro HDMI. The DVIs were then converted to HDMI, so I had 4 HDMI 2.0s out, 2.0 outs essentially, or maybe 1.4. Either way, they could do plenty in that regards. So then once again, main monitor, because I have 4 right now, so main monitor was on the 670 and 770s. The other 3 were all on that secondary card. So now how I do it is my main displays, I have 3 that are 10-bit, 4K, 1200p, 1440p, and then on the right here I have an 8-bit display, and then upper right I will have another 8-bit display. So those 2 will be on the 750 Ti, just to make it so that I don't have the guy up here yet, but the I'm gonna keep all the 10-bit stuff on the 2080 Ti. Might get a little bit messy looking at drivers now, so the 750 Ti might have to come out. But now knowing that we can use this 430.64, we're going to go dig back into the folder we just made and delete that and paste that in there. Now, the other thing we're going to need to find, which I can't do on the current screen you're seeing because it's EVGA again, we need EVGA Precision XOC. Now, there was EVGA Precision, EVGA Precision X, EVGA Precision XOC, and EVGA Precision X1. The reason why I want XOC is that should be the newest version that will support the 900 series card. I know I spoke a bit fast there. Oh, wrong browser. Even over here, I'm on the wrong browser. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions or anything like that, let me know. And I'll do what I can to answer you. on that. I'm kind of just going over. Hopefully you're getting some info out of me on this, or you're just chilling out with the music. I think that drivers like or PC builders, even if they built maybe even a couple systems, you will definitely get better performance and more updated support out of your system going through and making sure everything's fully updated, especially when you do a clean install. And I can do clean installs in my system. I would say it's almost yearly. It isn't probably yearly, but maybe every year and a half or so. Something just breaks far enough, or there's a big enough Windows update that comes out where I know it's going to reset enough of my settings where I'm just like, heck it, screw it. We're just going to wipe it, and I'm going to update everything. Because updating some of these big drivers, not saying it will break Windows, but Windows sometimes is not too happy about it. Unless you update, like say you would update your UEFI, then update your Windows, then you could probably start updating some of these like base MEI drivers and stuff like that. Like I do know that the new AMD drivers aren't going to work all that well unless you update your BIOS to the new thing that's compatible with the new ones. So it's kind of like a, you need this to do that, to do this, to do that, to do this, to that sort of thing. So I tend to like not update at all until I update everything, unless it's required to do something. That's why I do like that the creator drivers have come out, as much as it seems like I won't be using them. Oh yeah, and getting Ryzen to work on Windows 7, you crazy guys. I mean, there are supposedly Windows 7 drivers, but there aren't drivers for the SATA controller as far as I can tell, and NVMe is not compatible with Windows 7, so I don't know what you're using. Maybe for running a VM, you need drivers? It's a great question. But I don't know. Just stick to Windows 10. Sorry. But, or you have to get, like realistically, if you want proper Windows 7 support, you need a 6th gen or older Intel system. If you want full Windows 7 support. Though in a year you won't be able to, utilize that, but to each their own, I guess. And I do know a lot of people still use Precision XOC, not X1, on their systems because it's not in beta. It doesn't support 20 series cards, but if you only have a 10 series card, I could see why you might do that. In this case, we have to because it... Let's see here. I'm pretty sure XOC does 900 series cards. I'm pretty sure they added that. I know I need Precision X downstairs because my X58 system, the newest generation I can use is the 700 series of graphics cards without running into issues. Because 700 series is kind of when they started doing UEFI, like UEFI only cards. Now I did get a reference 980 working in there. However, I do actually have, and I know this sounds crazy, but I do actually have Windows XP even on that system. Now that's part of the reason why the newest card I have in there, or the 760, is actually the newest card, or that generation, is the newest card supported by Windows XP. So I'm kind of locked into that card. Luckily I have a 4 gig, so, and it's a FTW, so it's a good card. A 780 would be nicer. I'm supposed to be getting one from somebody, but they've been dragging their feet, annoyingly. Excuse me. Alright, so now that we're Realtek high definition audio LAN. Alright, so the Realtek LAN driver is available. Let's see which Realtek. Pretty sure this is also a low end Realtek. Either way, we'll get grab that Realtek LAN there. Now with Realtek, to get there, I showed you guys before where you go for it. So you go to Squares was just talking to me about he's getting super mad at Battlefield because it's broken even more after the latest patch. So you want to go to downloads, make sure you go to overview. Clicking any of these results in basically nothing. If you click overview, however, you can go to we want PCIe because it's built in, and then we want Windows 10 auto installation program. Now, what they're going to make you do now is actually get emailed a link. They won't just let you click on it anymore, which is annoying. But I guess at least they still make it available. Alright. So, emailed me the link. I already got the email. Gotta do one of these CAPTCHA things, or CAPTCHAs, sorry. Alright. Download that in my normal browser, Firefox. Give Firefox a try, guys. New one's pretty BA. I run nightly. Nightly? Yeah. They now have developer, which I don't. That's still considered a stable version. It just has additional features now, whereas it used to be called. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. But it used to be like a beta version essentially. Now it's not beta. It's just called developer. It has the additional developer features, and you run generally a little bit newer. So you're basically what they intend is that you're using it to develop features that will be compatible with future versions of Firefox or future standards that are already in that version that aren't in the stable version yet. I run nightly. For the most part, it's good. You get a lot of features beforehand. Some features that also never make it to stable that stay in here. One kind of downside is sometimes there'll be an update pushed on Saturday that just like completely breaks add-ons or your bookmarks menu or something, and that won't be fixed because the next day is Sunday. That's kind of annoying, I will admit. I'm also kind of not super happy about how they changed all the add-ons and I can't manage my sessions myself, but that's been since Quantum and I've kind of gotten over that. Kind of have to get over that, in fact. Now we're not going to do RAID, but we're still going to need the drivers too. So RAID. Save. RAID. Save. Oh, and for those of you wondering, because people always like, isn't ASRock the same as ASUS? No. ASRock, at one point, ASUS spun off their manufacturing arm, or part of it. And then that ended up becoming... It didn't become ASRock, but ASRock, like, spawned off of that, essentially. So, like, they're related. I believe... You know, they're definitely related, but they're by no means the same company. But that is why if you see a lot of design things that are the same, is because like the manufacturing is very, very similar. Just getting tweets from, or not tweets, messages and hangouts from Squares about his system blue screening due to our Battlefield crashed desktop, and now I just got a blue screen. Mine actually crashed the other day when Battlefield 5 was open. He got critical structure corruption. It sounds like broke Windows to me, but if Battlefield 5 was open, you never know. Could have just been broke-ass Battlefield 5. So now what we want is we want... all this stuff. We don't need any of these fancy folders. StoreMy is nice. It's kind of like equivalent to what we were talking before about Intel's Smart Response. Except it's made by a third-party company and just rebranded. So I don't know if that really makes it worse or better. Making sure we got the right drivers here. There we go. You got your, this is your, what we call an F6 floppy driver that stems from like Windows XP, if not earlier, where you had to press F6 during during Windows XP setup starting to load in your storage driver. What happens here is you want to load that. If you have RAID and you're booting from that, you want to load your RAID driver during your custom Windows install, and there's a load driver option at the storage screen. Instead of using generic drivers, you want to load that. Ideally, even if you're booting NVMe, you might want to do that, but technically speaking, it's not required. Like, you know, if your boot drive isn't the RAID drive, it shouldn't be required. I still load it if I'm going to use RAID, if I have it available, though. And I'm getting pretty tired because it's 2 a.m., which makes sense. So we might not do software updates today since it's not, like, vehemently required, since stuff isn't happening tomorrow. Now, if we go to utilities, we need the RGB software, of course, and restart to UEFI is useful. Excuse me, I didn't expect that burp to escape. you guys are hanging out and enjoying the music, gotta, you know, show some thanks and hit up Logan from Tech Syndicate, because he allows me to use that for my streams, which I appreciate. Gives me some, you know, I don't have to pay anybody to use music, and we got some pretty good tunes. I'll have to do a video on my foobar setup at some point. Finally found something I actually like that seems modern, which I know crazy for foobar, but imagine like a Metro Zune software. That's what it seems like. Alright guys, so that's the last of that folder. And we're done with drivers. Alright, so since we're done getting drivers for these two systems, I was also going to do tools. Took a bit longer than I was expecting, I think, to do all these drivers. Also, since I'm not really pressed to have it done by tomorrow, I don't have to, like, you know, stay up super late. It's also 2 here, so yep, I think I'm gonna hop off. Thanks for stopping in if you did. You can find me as @TheProfosist pretty much everywhere. I'm most active on Twitter and then Instagram. The website is the-tech-exchange.com, and most places will show up as Tech Exchange The, because it's such a unique name that I couldn't find the actual one. Great planning, right? Well guys, we'll see you in the next one.